Yep.
Yep.
We're on.
Good morning and welcome to the May 9th special board meeting. Looks like it's 8:02 a.m. Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Coates?
Here.
Mrs. Horn?
Here.
Mr. Manley? Here. Warren?
Here.
Pickle Antonio?
Here. I don't know who that is.
Somebody's.
Two people are, I think somebody here is, it might be you, Jill.
There we go.
Okay. So we have, looks like there are two items for action under letter A, human resources. If there is not an objection to taking those two items together, is there a motion to approve item number 1 and 2 under letter A, human resources? So moved. Mrs. Mooring, is there a second? I'll second. Thank you, Mrs. Coates. Is there any discussion?
I just would say that we had 3 amazing candidates, and it is, I'm very excited that Dr. Eagle has accepted our offer to come to the district, and I look forward to having her join the team.
Any additional discussion?
Just concur with that.
Very exciting. It is exciting. I want to, I guess, reiterate, in case there's anybody watching, I just want to reiterate on behalf of the board our thanks to our community members who participated in a survey that we sent out to solicit feedback about the qualities that were important for the next superintendent. I think we had over 400 responses to that survey, and we are grateful for the time that anybody took to fill out that information. We also had a group of stakeholders join us last week on Wednesday for interviews with, as Mrs. Mooring said, 3 amazing finalist candidates. And we are all incredibly grateful for the time that was spent. It was a long night for the stakeholders who participated in that process, but they asked some really good questions. I would say particularly the questions that came from the students were fantastic. But that entire night, it was very helpful for the board to be able to watch the finalist candidates interacting with members of our community. So we thank those participants for that. Again, as Mrs. Mooring said, we had some amazing people apply to be the district's next superintendent. And the 3 finalist candidates that we had were all wonderful. I don't want to, I guess, speak before we vote, but I think we all kind of agreed that Dr. Deagle is the best fit for our district at this time, and we're excited to welcome her to the district. She has already begun to look for some dates that she can come and spend time in the district before the end of the school year so she can get to meet staff. And we will be scheduling some dates soon for her to come in so she can start to meet community members as well. But I also want to give a thanks to our search firm, Finding Leaders, for helping us navigate not even just their traditional process, but we put them on quite an expedited timetable. So appreciate that. Any additional discussion?
I just want to say also an intimidating process, but felt so supported, and the community, I can't say how much it meant to get your feedback, and also the teachers and staff and everybody who said, Dion, no matter who you choose, we're behind you and we trust you. And that was such a good feeling to know that our community and our Hannah Jefferson Public School family is behind us 100% all the way. And, you know, just can't say enough about how the support from everyone has helped us get through this, and I'm really excited. So thank you.
Can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Pickle Antonio?
Yes.
Mrs. Coates?
Yes.
Mrs. Horn?
Yes.
Mr. Manley?
Yes.
Mrs. Moore?
Yes.
Motion carried.
You can retire now.
I just want to say I'm very grateful to all of you and the community and everyone.
Yeah, maybe we should have held our vote to approve your retirement until after. We've got 3 items for action under general business. Unless there is an objection to taking those 3 items together, is there a motion to approve items number 1 through 3 under letter B?
I have a question. Sure. So maybe just procedural. I have a lot of questions on the Blacklick GMP, so I don't know if number 3.
So do you want to separate it out? to
Well,
vote on it separately?
I just want to make sure we can talk about it.
So once we get the motion on the table, then I'll open it up for discussion on all 3 of them.
But then we would still have to approve it all together.
Correct.
I was,
Do you want to separate it
just
out?
to be safe,
Okay, so what number is that one?
number 3.
Okay, so let's do 1 and 2 first. Is there a motion to approve items number 1 and 2 under letter B, general business?
So moved.
This is Maureen. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. I think this is Maureen. Any discussion about items number 1 and 2?
I had a question, just the source of funds on number 2.
It's number 2 for the turf. It's out of the same project. I want to give Scott credit, a shout out about, finding a way. We already did turf on our current field about 4 years ago. And so we're using the same company. And so he found a way to get it cheaper and expedited. And so we pulled it out of the Versilli scope so that we could do that. And what Versilli is going to do is do the earthwork to prepare the drainage so that we can put the turf in. So thank you, Scott. Scott's here with us today. And then I would like to just say that I am just so grateful to our team, to Turner, Versilli, and DLR for the middle school value engineering that took place. To be about, and I sent you guys an email with a chart, to be 2.4% over in regular times, in precedented times, as Judy was talking about. These are unprecedented times in a lot of ways, but for building, with the labor shortage and the supply chain issues, to be 2.4% over is extraordinary. And it's just a very diligent, very painstaking process of separating needs from wants. What do we need right now to, add classroom space? Middle School West was a little bit higher, obviously, because we're adding an actual middle school gym. It basically had a very small, almost elementary sized gym. And so Jill and Scott and Aaron and that our team, and then Mike and Mark and all the DLR team, the Versilli team, thank you so much, because we were quite a bit over, I think at 1.4 million over. And so if you have the time to actually value engineer these things, you can, you have to reduce scope sometimes, but you can make the scope reductions acceptable enough to still get what you need within the right price range. So your vote today will allow us to go to construction documents, which is what Versilli will use to build, to do the work, right? And so we're excited and we're tickled pink. And we didn't want to be over at all. We'd like to be under. We were under a little bit at Lincoln Elementary. But, and then Mark had the idea, and I sent you guys an email about this. How are we going to pay for the overage? It's, almost $700,000.
But before you go in, I think from when we met on Friday, right, just to be clear, we still have value engineering items that we might possibly still be able to bring that number down.
So when we met with you and Daphne on Tuesday, we were at 2.6. Friday afternoon at 2:30, we did some more BE exercises and we brought it down to 2.4. pretty much at the end of that. I don't
Okay.
think we're gonna
Because
get
I think when we met, we just actually met Friday morning.
Tuesday morning.
Good Lord.
Last week was a lot.
Last week was all one day.
That's right. About that one day. We met
All right,
Friday, but it
all
was-
right. I was thinking that we had less time, so you already went through all of that
Yeah,
part of it.
all-
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
All week long.
And that's the thing
If
about
I may add
project
something.
engineering, is that you almost have to have multiple meetings to look at it multiple times, because you see different things at different times. And so, you know, literally, you know, our Friday meeting at 2:30 took another chunk out without losing scope. So,
Good job to all. Scott, really good job on the turf. Thank you.
So to your point then, Mark found a way of how we can pay for that within the,
yeah,
Contingency.
within the
Sorry, Mark.
design contingency, Mark, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so within Russilli's DD estimate, they included a design and estimating contingency, and we were trying to hold that design and estimating contingency consistent with where we were at SD, schematic design, given the fact that the market is the way that it is, and we've talked about that quite a bit. So we were trying to take a conservative approach in preserving that money before we dipped into it to help offset some of the budget challenges that we have remaining. But we feel as though it's still, I don't want to say fertile grounds for reconciling this overrun, but it's available to us and it's intended to address this very situation. And what we're left with is a design and estimating contingency at design development that is between 3.5% and 4.5%, which is a very a traditional number that we see at DD, and it's certainly not irresponsible to release those monies at this stage in order to round out the overrun.
thank you.
Sure.
And when we
And
talk-
I would say, Sue, you asked the question about continuing the VE process. Even though we are transitioning from DD to CD, the reason why we were successful in getting so close at DD is because through that design development process, we were very disciplined and conscientious of our budget challenges. That MO will continue through CD, and we are hoping to find some additional savings through continued design.
Mark, I have a quick question. When we talk to Bricker and Eckler, their construction team, and you guys, you're seeing projects that are 10, 20, 50% over at this point right now, right?
Yeah, this is, there's some pretty dramatic overruns that a lot of clients are dealing with, and designers and builders are dealing with right now. And for DLR to produce a DD set on 3 complicated jobs and be at 5% or less it takes a lot of discipline on behalf of the district to make tough decisions and choices. It takes a lot of discipline on behalf of the design team to execute on those decisions, despite their desire to give the district the best of everything that they can. And kudos to Russilli as well for producing an estimate that we can work off of and really begin to work that number down. But hats off to the entire team, because dealing with a 5% overrun at DD is really good news during these times. It would be good news irrespective of the time, but especially given our economy right now and just how much pressure are on budgets. This is really remarkable, and everyone deserves a lot of credit to Steve's point.
I think it's going to get tougher because Intel's going to start, and they're going to need 7,000 construction workers, and they're probably going to come from all over the world to do that work. Right? For all the material too. Yeah. So anyway, the VE we're doing 50% EV at the high school is really important right now, and we're working really hard to too much so that we get everything we need, and it's going to be even tougher. So, but thanks, Martin.
Any additional discussion about items number 1 and 2? Okay, Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Coates,
Yes.
Mrs. Horn,
Yes.
Mr. Manley,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mrs. Pickle,
Yes.
motion carried.
There is a motion to approve item number 3 under letter B.
Make motion.
Thank you, Mr. Manley. Is there a second? I'll second. Mrs. Coates. Discussion.
So in your comments, you referenced a PUD, a planned unit development for the Blacklight complex.
Yeah,
Can we get that?
we could, sure.
I mean, if we're relying on that to
Yeah.
fulfill what we believe
Sure.
was part of it, I feel like
Sure.
we need that to have the whole picture,
Yeah.
right?
So we can get that from DLR. It was Dennis Bain who we talked with him about it, and I tried to reach him over the weekend so he could be at this meeting, but it's Mother's Day and it was hard to get people. But at the end of the day, yeah, we can get that because I think this complex is going to be one of the most extraordinary venues for athletics for a community that our whole community will be able to use. I think the question is, what can we afford right now? What do we promise the community pre-bond? And what's our plan, to your point, of growing it and making sure that we use every bit of that acreage to add the amenities that we want to have. But what number 3, or what this is about today, is about getting the site work done. We've talked about that. Sue, Daphne, and I, and Mike had a discussion. So what is really difficult is the earthwork, which includes digging, the drainage, the utilities, is almost 40% of what we have allotted for this project. And what's difficult about it is, and good, is that we will set the whole site up with the future plans because this work will be done right out of the gate. And we won't have to put down asphalt and then tear it up and then dig more to put drainage in. We're going to do the whole site now. And we need to get started on it so that Lucille can do the earthwork for the turf that Scott's going to put in for the soccer team at Blacklight. And so what this includes is the 10 tennis courts with restrooms. It includes 2 softball fields. It includes 2 practice fields that will be grass, and it includes the turf field. And we still have BE to do on that spreadsheet that I showed you, because some of those numbers, like the softball, still have lights. We don't, Jefferson Township is not going to let us put lights in, so we're going to pull that out. And so when we reduce the utilities, we're going to reduce this even more, and then be able to get more than what I showed you we were going to get, or what I just mentioned.
So my confusion was from our meeting, which I think was Wednesday morning, just to be clear.
Okay.
Was the fact that we all agreed that we need to move forward with the base, right? With the base being the excavation.
Yeah, you and Daphne and I
Right.
talked about how smart
With all
that
of
was.
that.
Yes.
Because we really didn't, in fairness, we really didn't scope out that project to the same detail that we did some of the other ones. So we kind of missed the mark from an overall budget perspective, and those kinds of things happen. But if we look at the high school, the Blacklight Athletic Complex, and the stadium together, I think that's what we talked about, is saying, okay, how do we
Yeah.
make sure that we're delivering
Yeah.
basically everything that we said that we needed to do within budget overall.
So you and Daphne and I and Mike talked about that.
Right,
The rest of
that's-
the board
but
doesn't
I-
know about that.
Exactly, so
So
that's
maybe we
why,
should talk about that with them.
yes,
yeah.
that's what I wanted to make
Yeah.
sure that everybody understood, is
Sure.
that the excavating, but what we didn't agree in that meeting, and what we said we needed more discussion on, was we need to make sure that that complex out there delivers on what the needs are for the
Yeah.
students, and what we said, if we're pulling things away from the stadium and taking them out there, they have the same level
Yeah.
of attributes and use that the stadium would have and everything for the sports being there. So I was expecting that we would see two pieces, right? We would see this is the construction piece, and we need to get started on that right away, and that's going to be
The excavation.
the excavation. Yeah, is so much.
We talked
money.
about having just on this agenda, just the GMP.
Right.
The problem is we have to move so quickly on everything else. And Daphne's gonna be out of town. We're gonna, I mean, Mike, do you want to talk about the timelines of like tennis courts and all that?
Well, the tennis courts, the electric contractor, what we've got included in this involves not only the earthwork contractor, but if you're performing earthwork contractor and you're not bringing along the plumbing contractor,
Oh, yeah.
and you're not bringing along the electrician, who all have underground utility work aside from the earthwork contractor, you're not gonna finish on time.
But that's what we, to be clear, that's what we had in our discussion, right? We had from BP number 9
Yes.
all the way down. We had all of that in that phase, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I'm remembering. And then we said, from the building standpoint and some of the other pieces, we might need to go back through and kind of rework some of that, but we would have time to have more detailed conversations with everybody and with the scope, right?
Right.
Am I remembering that right?
Yeah,
Right.
so, yeah, go ahead, Mike.
So what Steve's saying is, what is included in this 5.87 million
Right.
is all the components to deliver. This might be an easier way to look at it.
Okay.
So if you look at the whole picture
Mhm.
for tennis courts, the whole picture for the softball fields and the athletic fields, in that 5,874,000, it is the entire component of the tennis courts, 2 softball fields. I know I'm repeating myself, but you gotta look at not just,
Yeah,
We haven't had this
you're,
conversation.
yeah, but you're not repeating yourself.
okay, because I tend to repeat myself.
No, you're fine.
Repetition is fine as well.
Right.
So when you pull up in the driveway, you are not looking at the underground utilities that the electrician had to bring from the transformers, or the underground utilities that the plumber had to bring to the bathrooms. It's those things that if you don't get on day one, and you think that, you can delay that process for 30 days, he will be tearing up work that is already installed. And now you're paying the earthwork contractor, you're paying the general trade, because he's got sidewalks to pour, but the electrician wants to come through and run his underground conduit. Or, they're getting ready to pour the slab for the bathrooms. He didn't bring the plumber on, so now he's gonna dig up the subgrade where they're ready to pour concrete to put his underground plumbing in, his utilities for his
So
water.
it has to all coordinate.
It all has to be at the same time, or we'll never get this thing done in August. It will be a mess.
The 5.8 is for all of that work and all of these things listed.
Yes, ma'am.
Softball, grass field.
And I call it component. We call it scope of work. It's the scope of work required to deliver that finished product to you.
So can we talk about the finished product? Because there's also supposed to be a building for softball, right? With bathrooms, right?
Right. So
Is that in it?
that is not mentioned in paragraph 2.
It's not in it, but
So there's no concession stand for softball.
that's not in it right now.
So that's my confusion of when we talked, we said we understood the one part of it and we understood the budget, but there were some, like, we still have to do these other pieces. And if we have to put them into, a subsequent, timeline, but still it would have to be done by next year.
Does this
So-
preclude those things though? Does approving this
Well, if
preclude?
they're not gonna run the electric and the plumbing for them
We're gonna
now.
run it for that, for what you're talking about, Daphne.
Well, it's not listed in here.
Okay.
But it's the underground utilities. Remember, we actually called it phased construction. We
Right.
actually,
I just want to make sure when we're saying phase
Everybody knows.
construction and everybody knows that in it, what my concern is, to be honest, my concern is it's gonna get pushed to
Forever.
after everything else. And what I'm saying is we cannot start softball, there next year or some of the other areas and not have what we originally said we were going to have. I mean, that to
The
me is the biggest,
baseball, softball practice facility, where's that?
the batting cage.
Batting cage.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just gonna, and you may disagree with this, but when we campaigned pre-bond, I said whatever was being displaced here, we were gonna do out there, right? And so the scope, if you look at the bottom of this page, this colorful box here,
Yeah.
that's the scope creep, because this is what we would eventually love to have out there. But can we afford it right now? The question is, we don't know. We don't think we can, given where the market is, given where labor is, given where supply chain is, but we can eventually put that in. Now, I mentioned in my email, and I don't know if this is practical, but you know, the tennis courts are pretty close to the baseball restrooms, so we may be able to shift the restrooms from tennis to softball, and as part of that, there might be able to be, you know, that building, we might be able to have concessions. But those are the kinds of things that we have to talk about. At the end of the day, though, you know, it's, would we love to have all this? Absolutely, and it's going to be amazing. But can we do it and still stay within our budget at the high school? And we don't know that because we're still in the midst of value engineering the high school. And so the concern is that we might take money from the high school to do this project. And
Well,
Daphne, you actually mentioned that you thought we should do that.
It's all one.
Well, it's not all one if you're taking from an academic structure and you're saying we're going to put these athletic facilities in and not know if we have enough money at the end of the day of the 158, how much of that are we going to take out of the high school budget, which is the building? How much are we going to take out of that?
It's a building and a stadium.
Yeah. And
Right.
so what I want to understand better,
So you're
maybe,
including
Sue,
the
is
stadium, but
because
not.
the stadium is going to be able to be used by soccer and everybody. It's just like it is now, lacrosse and track and so it's still going to be a multi-purpose stadium. It's just we have to wait a little bit for it because it's a year out from Labor Day this coming year to Labor Day of like 2023.
Just a quick question, I hear what you're saying, Steve, that what we promised was that what is gonna be displaced, we wanna make sure we have at the athletic field. So for softball, since they can't use the stadium, and they're a whole different way of playing.
Yeah.
Do they currently have concessions and restrooms by the softball?
We have concession.
They do, so we.
We have porta potties, I believe. So, and we don't, I mean, I have heartburn about having a new facility and putting porta potties out there. We could do that, but that's not what we want to do.
So we probably should figure out, and maybe this is the path you're going down
Right.
to the second phase, the concession part, because
Yeah.
they can't come back, right? Like some of soccer,
So,
not
yeah.
all of soccer, but some of
Absolutely.
soccer. So we probably do need a concession.
Yeah, and then the other outbuilding was like a batting cage. We definitely want to do that. And I've talked to Coach Shade about that. They have a current warm-up place for pitchers that he said we could enclose in a batting cage area so that we could do that in a maybe a less expensive way. And maybe we could use other funds to do that. So there are ways we can get some of these other things. It's just what I'm worried about, not having value engineered, not knowing where we are with the budget of the high school, taking money out of that to do this now, even though we want it, you know, as soon as we can get it.
So I have a question. If on the sheets that we've been presenting, the scorecards, the Blacklick athletic budget, projected budget was $6,560,000.
Yeah.
And on the document you just gave us, it's 5 million.
That's wrong. Remember, we told them that on Friday.
5,747,000.
The reason those two numbers are different, Daphne, is because we extracted the synthetic turf from Russilli's scope.
Yeah.
And put it below the line,
Yeah, we talked about that on Wednesday.
and that's what that difference is.
Ian, did you have a question?
just overall, I really respect your work and I respect the challenges. And I think right now there's sacrifices that the students make as far as access to bathrooms and things like that. And just overall, I feel like we are getting a lot and sacrifices. I'm with you on that and waiting. And I respect your judgment as to what can wait and what can't. I really do. And Scott had mentioned putting up tents for concessions as a temporary thing. It's not ideal, but I personally feel like we are getting so much from everything your team is doing, and I appreciate all that. And I'm fine with sacrificing and waiting on some things. I really appreciate the attention to detail that we have. I do have concern, or just a general question as far as VP 17, the pavement being in red, and the blanks on VPXX. You know, I don't know exactly what I'm saying, but you know, I don't understand that part. But you know, I'm fine with some sacrifices, and I think the students are used to that, and the families are almost expecting that in certain areas. So expediting things, I really respect that. Let's be smart and fast and methodical. So,
And to your point, I can explain bid package 17. Again, you need to put yourself in a contractor's position. We had the wettest winter on record. So if you look at bid package 14, it's equivalent to the same coverage, not real good. But the real picture is these guys are so far behind schedule that some of them make a business decision that if I can't deliver on time because I've got all this work that hasn't started, because the earthwork contractor hasn't started because we're waiting on things to dry up. If you drive down Taylor Road, that's a perfect example. That job has been sitting all winter long, and it's nothing but a swamp. Every contractor is dealing with that right now. So to take on work that has a must complete stop date, and your schedule of completing this year, there's not enough time to complete that work. So they are making a business decision to finish the work that they have on their books. And if they can't finish, they're going to back out. And that's the reality of where we are with construction right now.
but especially today.
We've never had a winter like we've had in the 32 years I've been in this business.
Right.
And we've had wet winters, but we've had good springs. So the contractors just, they bring everybody back to work and they get caught up. We had a very, very wet, cold spring and nothing dried out. Right. Nothing dried out. So that's
when I talked to, Turner and I talked to Mr. Bricker, they can't even get contractors to bid on jobs.
Right.
They're either waiting for intel or they're just, I think it's because of the timeline. So we're grateful that Kendricks and Mr. Excavator actually put in bids or estimates. And, Mike, to your point, Dion, DLR designed cement sidewalks around the tennis facility. Well, we're already going to be laying asphalt, right, and curbs. So why not just continue around the tennis courts with asphalt, which is cheaper? So those are the VEX, or the change isn't that much, but the cost savings is great. And so those are the kind of things that Mike brings to the table, because we would have probably never, even thought of that, to be honest.
For clarification, if we vote to approve this, what's in front of us today, does that preclude the additional components that are not part of this? Does that preclude us from, once there's more value engineering that takes place, or does this set the framework to be able to do those things? Which is what I thought I was understanding, but that's what I'm trying to get
that was my question too, is that I don't think it's fair, quite honestly, because Earl, Kara, and Dion didn't have the conversations that we had last Wednesday. And my understanding when we said yes, added to the agenda, was just to get this piece approved and not to really make the decision yet on
That's
the
my
second,
question.
is on the second piece. And I'm comfortable with the first piece. I'm really not comfortable with the second piece.
But we are not up to speed at all on the
Right.
second piece, so.
So the second piece, so the
Do
really,
we have to have the conversation about the second piece today in order, if we go forward and approve this,
right.
does that leave us the ability to still have the conversation?
So I think what you're calling the second piece is different from what Sue's
I
calling.
don't think so.
Well, let me just clarify for me.
Okay,
What Mike said is that this piece, the
Uh-huh.
5.8 million, in concert, the plumbers, the electricians, the excavators, all working together, approving this. So what Sue's saying, she's comfortable, I think, with the excavation, the
Right.
earthwork, and the utilities, right? But what Mike is saying is that the tennis courts and all of these things are on a very tight
I think
timeline.
she's fine with that.
Yeah, so but I thought what you were saying, the second piece is maybe later what we add as part of a planned unit development. Is that what you mean? Because when you say there's anything precluded.
We don't have enough.
Steve, may I jump in
Yeah.
here?
Yeah, go ahead.
So what is before you today is the infrastructure to provide for the master plan, okay? But it also is to approve building two softball diamonds, 2 seated grass practice fields, the base for Scott's synthetic turf field, and 10 tennis courts, okay? That's what we're seeking approval on. So all the other stuff, the batting cage building, the much more elaborate fencing and netting and pavement sections and things of that sort, the extent of the pavements, whether you have permanent bleachers or temporary bleachers, those sorts of amenity enhancements, we're not saying no with this board resolution, we're saying not quite yet.
That's my understanding too. So thank you for saying that clearly.
So the only thing that I would add into that, just to make sure of, is that on the buildings that are in question or the areas that are in question, if we're doing the excavating and electrical work, will that stuff be, I don't know the right term to use, placed so that it's there, so when we go to build it, we don't have to go back and re-excavate to put in like electric or plumbing or whatever. Like, I mean, to me, that would make sense that we do all of it at one time.
And that's what this is.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that
Right.
we all are hearing the same thing.
We're setting ourselves up for success in the event that the high school comes under budget and we have some additional funds to complete this, or the funds come from another means.
Okay.
So yes, and that's what I'm sorry, I speak in general terms, but the underground utilities, the
I just meant
infrastructure.
it meant underground for all, not just for what's on here.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
and maybe we weren't clear at the beginning, but that's what this is, to
Yeah.
set up the infrastructure to do all that. Now, we are pulling out utilities like lights, right, to the fields, because they never asked for them, we don't have them now. And so we are pulling things like that out, right?
We're pulling lights, but they can be added later.
Any additional discussion about what's in front of us today?
So as soon as possible, I think it would make sense because I feel like we keep getting information in these little chunks. And I think for especially this particular piece, if you all are thinking about when to phase these things in, so share that, right? Like, I think it would be very helpful to understand when we think that building and the concession and the fencing and whatever.
So you're asking, lay out the planned unit development.
Yeah,
and try
where's the
to
source
put
of funds?
a timeline.
Timeline and source of funds.
Okay.
Yeah,
Source of funds, I may need your help with, but we can certainly put out the timeline.
Well, even if it gets worked into PI or something
Yeah.
like that.
Mhm. Yeah,
I think that's, I mean,
that's probably the way.
I mean, if you're deferring it,
Right,
and you're without a source of funds, then you're kicking it off the plan, right?
that's usually what happens, you're right.
Right.
So that's where I'm saying,
No, that's,
if
yeah,
you're kicking it off the plan, we need to know that because we may want to fight for it now.
So
rather than
so
have
the,
it be that
we
way,
can talk
right?
with DLR about doing that for us.
Yeah, I think what we can do is develop a master plan and then just kind of color code certain items that are targeted for completion at this particular date, which means we need a decision and a funding source by this particular date. And just kind of put that in a schematic of the actual plan itself. So you truly do have a master plan to work off of, not just while phase 2 program is being constructed, but also even beyond potentially.
I didn't hear you.
So I said, I think it's important not only for us, but I think the teams that are affected,
Yeah.
they thought they were getting something and now it's gone, right? So, you know,
Yeah.
they've been kicked off main campus and they thought they were getting this amenity and now it's
That's,
so.
yeah, I definitely get that. It makes me think about the building as well, right? That's some of the risk of sharing these
Right.
grand ideas up
Right.
front before you have pricing attached to it, because inevitably your dreams are bigger than your budget.
Right, right.
So, yeah.
And it's difficult.
It is,
Mhm.
it very much is.
Okay, any additional discussion about item number 3? Staging plan. Beginning, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Maureen?
Yes.
Mrs. Spiegel Antonio?
Yes.
Mrs. Coates?
Yes.
Mrs. Warren?
Yes.
Mr. Manley?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Warren. Is there a second?
Oh, second.
Yes, Mrs. Coates. Any discussion? Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Manley?
Yes, and welcome, Dr. Vigo.
Mrs. Maureen?
Yes.
Mrs. Spiegel Antonio?
Yeah.
Mrs. Coates?
Yes.
Mrs. Warren?
It is 8:44. I almost said PM, but it is still AM, and we're adjourned.
Thanks, everyone.
Slightly.
12:30, something like that.